So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about how to apply this. And let's just start with a really easy one. The wise mind, right? Let's say there's some issue, maybe it's an issue of disagreement, it's like whatever it is, and you're engaging with someone and you realize, they're in their wise mind. And you know what I'll say? Great, go for it. It's easy. You know why? Because you can talk to someone in their wise mind, right? Because they're open. They'll listen to you. They'll consider what you have to say, right? And if there's a change they need, they'll be like, okay, I'll consider it. It's easy to talk with them. But we don't have to worry about that too much because that's easy. So let's just skip to the ones where it gets hard that we've got to be aware of. So let's talk about the foolish mind for a second. When we're talking with or engaging someone that's in the foolish mind, it's understanding how interacting with this mindset becomes important. And this week, as we were talking about this on staff, Stacy made a really good observation in this. She said, Glenn, hearing you describe, the fool, and we were looking at some other passages on it, whatever. She goes, it's just like describing a toddler. It's like, it's just, so when we're in our foolish mind, it's like we've reverted back to when we were a toddler. But here's the thing, right? You're not going to engage, right, a toddler with just like nice, rational thought, assuming that they're going to be open. And there's going to be moments where we will find ourselves, reverting back into kind of a foolish mind. And that's where we've got to say, you know what, I need to be more grown up about this. But you'll also have moments where there's going to be someone you're working with, right? And they're going to be more in that mindset in this. And so Proverbs has some great advice for how to interact with these two. And I want to look at this one for just a second here. So when we think about okay, how do I engage someone who's being closed and dug in, you think about the situation that you're in, whether it's at work or a friend that keeps pulling you into their drama or problems, or maybe it's like a political conversation that keeps happening in the middle of family gatherings, and it's just like, what do I do? At the heart of it, what Proverbs is saying is you've got to change the conversation. You can't keep having a conversation as if you're talking to someone in their wise mind, right? To just be rational and calm and assume that you can have an exchange of thoughts out of openness, not going to happen. So here's what it has to say about how to change that conversation. The first thing is this: pivot away from debating and convincing, right? Just don't try to have the conversation where you're going to enter in that debate and convince them of why you're right in this. Proverbs 26:4 says, do not, right, catch this, do not answer a fool according to his folly, or you yourself will be just like him. Because here's the point, right? If there's a kind of, I'll put it this way, there's a kind of vigorous discussion you can have if you're in your wise mind and someone else is in their wise mind, right? You can have that kind of vigorous discussion. And if you're both in your wise mind, it can go well. You can talk about the facts, not make it personal. Be open in thinking about it. Be okay with the fact that maybe you all don't agree on this, maybe never will. But if you're trying to have that same conversation with someone who's in their foolish mind, I promise you, right, the way they will keep coming at, the way they're going to dig in, will keep inviting you to be more closed and to dig in, to not think about what they're saying. Instead, use that as the lull in which you're going to think about how you're going to counter to what they say. And what Proverbs is saying is pivot off of that, because here's what happens. You go from being in your wise mind to your foolish mind. And guess what? You're back on the ride. Right? You get two people trying to debate something out and they're both in their foolish mind. You're on the ride. Okay? So pivot away from that. But this is what I love about Proverbs, is now it flips it around and gives us this idea of what to pivot it to. So verse 5 almost feels like a contradiction to verse 4, because verse 4 says, do not answer a fool according to their folly. Look at how verse 5 opens up. Answer a fool according to his folly. And you're like, what? But it goes on. Answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own eyes. And what the passage is trying to do here is it's saying, listen, don't engage in the conversation with the fool in a way that just makes you behave like them. Instead, engage with them in a way that actually gets to what they're not wise about. Get to the deeper issue. Get to the more important issue in this. So this is how I would put this. So the second part is talk about the relational issue or pattern that's going on. Get to the thing behind the thing. Get to the thing that's more important, which is about the relationship or maybe the reoccurring pattern. And can I say this as well, that I think this is important? When you do that, don't make the point that I'm going to pivot off of debating so that I can now fix my friend who's the fool, right? And if you identify them as like, I think they're in a foolish mindset, don't open up the discussion with, so I just need you to know I'm in a wise mindset right now and you're in a foolish mindset. And so I'm going to talk to you a little differently, right? Don't do that, right? Because that's not going to work. Because Proverbs isn't asking you to fix them. So you don't even need to talk about that. You can just let that be a little secret between you and Jesus right in that moment, okay? Just, my friend's in a foolish mindset right now. So I'm not going to try and debate them. I'm going to actually talk about what's more important, what's relational. I wonder if I can talk in a way that actually gets to the wisdom of what we really need to be talking about. Let me give you a couple examples of that. One might be, and by the way, this is where I just encourage all of us, myself included. This is where you get soft and caring, right? This is where let your compassion flow in these moments as you talk about this. And maybe, let's say, maybe it's a friend who, they are so excited about this person that they've been dating. They've had all of 3 dates, and they're like, we've already had 3 dates, and it's gone so well. I think this is the person. This is the person for the rest of my life, right? And you're like, yeah, but you had 3 of these people last year, right? And 3 dates, maybe 2 hours apiece. That's not even a whole working day, right? You got 6 hours. You're choosing the person for your life, and you've been with them all of like not even a full working day, like 6 hours. Like, instead of trying to engage that, because here's how that's gone, right? They come and they ask me, what do you think about this person? And I say, I think you're going too fast. And they're like, oh, I'm mad at you because you don't want me to find real love. You're just a downer. And you get mad at me. But then if I don't talk about it, then it all goes bad in a few weeks and you come back to me and you're like, what kind of friend are you? You didn't say anything to me. You let me rush in there and I asked you about it and you were just like, why didn't you help me? And you're just like, man, you're mad at me no matter what I do, right? Don't have that conversation. Here's the conversation you can have, right? Here's the wisdom. Have the conversation that says, hey, in our relationship, I don't want to talk about that problem. I want to talk about the problem that we can't talk about the problem. I want to talk about why is it that when we, there's another problem that you're not hearing me in this, that I care about you, right? I want to talk about that problem in this. Or maybe it comes down to the thing where there's that, with a family member or a good friend, there's that tension. Maybe, it's politics. And you keep finding yourself going to that discussion about politics. And it slowly, you both know how to just slowly ramp it up until it becomes a heated thing that dominates. And you're on that roller coaster. And you're just like, I don't know how to take it another place in this. Well, maybe there's the problem behind the problem. Maybe there's the pattern you need to talk about. I want to go back to, remember I told you I was in a conversation and I realized in the midst of that conversation, I'm I'm thinking and operating out of my foolish mind. And for me, it was like, okay, how do I engage my wise mind? How do I come in touch with Christ who is in me? And it was like, it's the relationship. I need to speak to because that matters more than the topic that we disagreed about. Now, I re-engaged it through these 3 questions that I actually asked and discussed with this person in the midst of this conversation. And I've actually used these 3 questions multiple times before, and you could probably use these same 3 questions in a multitude of different issues or whatever, and you don't have to if you don't want to, but let me give them to you here. So when I realized it, and I was like, okay, God, help me get back into my wise mind. Help me pivot this conversation to something positive. So here's the first question I asked. I said, hey, so do you think there's any chance that I could say something, point out some fact, make some unique argument that would change your mind or your belief on this? He's like, no. You're probably right. Second question. And I literally asked this guy, I said, what do you think the chances are that you are going to change me on this? What do you think? What are the chances are that you really think you could convince me that I'm wrong and that I'll agree with you? And he laughed out loud. He goes, yeah, no, because, you're kind of stuck and dug in, right? He didn't say that, but, right? No. So third question was, so if neither one of us believe we're going to change the other person on this, how can we move forward relationally without trying to change each other? Like, how can we just let the other person, because we're not going to change him, love to, but we're not. How do we move forward on that? And it just changed the whole tenor of the discussion, because now, just giving up arguing about the thing that mattered less and got to focus on some ways that actually bring us together, that we have commonality on, that we both care about in there. And that's just coming from a place of understanding, right? Who am I engaging in all of this? Okay, last one real quick. And this is what happens when you're trying to engage someone, and you think maybe they're in that mocker mindset in this. It's interesting what Proverbs has to say about this. Proverbs chapter 9, verse 8, it says this. Here's the advice it gives us. It says, do not rebuke mockers, or they'll hate you. Rebuke the wise, and they'll love you. Because the wise person is open, and they'll change. But notice, it says, you know what, with mockers, if they're in that place, maybe, and here's the thing, sometimes changing the conversation looks like not having a conversation. Sometimes it's just to back off. Even if they think they've won the debate, don't even try to explain that to them. Sometimes it's just saying, you know what? For what's best for us, I'm not even going to go there right now. Like if we're gonna keep dialoguing or whatever, I'm not going to go to that place in there, because that's what's best for the relationship in those moments. And it's understanding that so often when we engage this, if we keep trying to treat one of these two like we're in a conversation with someone who's open and wants to grow, it inevitably keeps pulling on us in ways that we become more like this. We become more of what we don't want to be. So maybe in this next year, the thing that we can all do is one, recognize all of these. But the other thing is to keep coming back and saying, okay, God, help me. Help me in my relationships with close friends, acquaintances, family, whoever it is. Help me to keep coming back to understand how I can operate more and more out of my wise mind and engage people in a way that is more loving and kind, that fits where they are, but keeps focusing on what's most important. And what you might find is, in this next year, you don't go on as many rides that you don't want to be on in the first place.